Okay. Well, then you kind of talked about this before, mental toughness. How do you, and this is another one that applies to me where and you'll see it even in high levels, certain people, it's almost like they've navigated their way through life and into success, not really needing that much mental toughness because maybe they had some special attribute that allowed them to be successful early on and kept them success. You know, like these like athletes, for example,
that are really
gifted,
talented.
yeah. And you know, and you kind of notice it when things get rough for them. That's when they break or whatever. And so I mean, I'm not saying I'm like a superior athlete or nothing like that, but it just so happens in a lot of ways, or some ways, whatever. I managed to avoid developing mental toughness up until about maybe 2 years ago, maybe. But, and I of course I know how mine came about. I think, I mean, the main reason was just through maturity and seeing it around me. But, let's say I wasn't surrounded by people who are mentally tough and I didn't see the value firsthand. How do you just develop mental toughness?
Again, this is one of those things that people ask, and this was a big question from online. You know, tons and tons of people asked, how do you develop mental toughness? How do you become more mentally tough? And, you know, you and I did that video on it where it's like, if you want to be more mentally tough, then be tougher. you know? Yeah. And you get these people that are out there that sell courses on developing mental toughness, and you know, they're either going to bring you into a room and get you into some spiritual state and say, okay, listen, you've got to visualize the mind of the wolf and you are going to see through the eyes of the wolf. What does a wolf do? The wolf does not back down. He leads the pack. And they're, you know, like all this stuff, right? Yeah. Okay, I don't, you know, no, not my gig right there. Because the cool thing about mental toughness is it's just a simple choice that you have to make. Are you going to go through this thing that's hard, this thing that's tough, this thing that sucks? Are you going to suffer through it, or are you going to quit? It's really easy. You just go, okay, I'm going to suffer through it. I'm going to deal with it. Then you're mentally tough. Done. Next question. Let's move on to something more important. You know what I mean? That's that easy.
But doesn't that, and maybe I'm wrong here, but that sounds like the answer coming from someone who has, doesn't sound crazy, but has the luxury of being mentally tough. So like when do you ever remember a time that you were that you were straight up mentally weak? Do you ever remember any time? No.
1996, I was, no, I'm just kidding. You know, like, I'll tell you, people talk about in SEAL training. They say, oh, everybody wants to quit at some point during SEAL training. And I literally, not at all, never for 1 second did I think, oh, I'm going to quit. I don't want to do this anymore. Not even a chance. That's ridiculous.
Who says that?
SEALs say it.
Like other SEALs say it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
You know, everyone thinks about quitting sometimes. I'm like, no. And I got plenty of bros in the SEAL teams that never thought about quitting.
Too. Yeah, two of my best friends. They said, no, you don't even think about quitting.
Don't even think about quitting.
Yeah.
And so those guys are mentally tough. And okay, so if you're not mentally tough, if you view yourself as mentally weak, then you got to do things, I guess, push yourself to that threshold. Right. And how do you push yourself to that threshold? You do mentally challenging things, you do physically challenging things, and you push through them.
Yeah.
And then that might develop your mental toughness more.
Right. Yeah, you'd think that like any exercise, getting the reps, you need to get those reps of hard stuff mentally. Like that seminar analogy you just made, that doesn't seem like that would ever work, no matter if you're visualizing yourself as a wolf or whatever. You're not even getting the reps. That's like saying, oh, I've never played basketball ever. I've never even held a basketball, but guess what? We're going to prepare you to be good at basketball. Close your eyes, visualize playing basketball. And that's your reps.
Yeah.
So it probably won't work. So back to the fear thing.
We're going to get hammered because all these people are going to be like, no, if you visualize, you get better. That's true. Like, they do all kinds of experience, but mental toughness, you're right. You might be right.
That's more of emotions thing.
Right,
I think when you visualize, winning and reacting and stuff. Mental toughness, maybe, but it won't substitute reps. Like if you're scared of something, for example, that should be like a flag or an indicator that, okay, let's get some reps right here. I'm scared of this.
You're right. And that being said, like you talking about your SEAL buddies that never were going to quit, right? And I was definitely never going to quit. Well, I didn't have any reps going into that of, mentally challenging things or whatever. I mean,
you did though in life.
But
and this is why I say that. I'm not. I obviously wasn't in SEAL teams at all. You might find that hard to believe. No, these guys both played football, D1 school. They both. One of them's father was a Navy SEAL, and just growing up a certain way with a certain environment does make you tough. Like, let's say your father just not letting right. you quit. Like you play even Pop Warner football, and your dad's like, no, you can't quit. Like, oh, I want to quit. This is lame. I'm not good. Or I'm so tired. I'm hurt or whatever. And your dad's saying, no, you don't quit. And it just is in your mind.
And this is the crazy thing about the SEAL teams is there's kids that grew up in, some rich town with very wealthy parents and went to an Ivy League school, and they're tough. And there's kids that grew up with no dad and, a single mom, and they're tough as hell. So that theory is almost debunked, because where does that mental toughness come from?
I think it comes from a bunch of different places. It just is interpreted and kind of internalized in the same way.
And I'll tell you where I think it comes from. I think it comes from when a human being decides that they're going to achieve their goals and they're going to go through whatever obstacles, then that's where mental toughness comes from. It is a decision that human beings make to make it happen.
Yeah. But I think that when...
You know what you're doing right now? You're shirking responsibility for mental toughness. That's what you're doing.
I'm trying to narrow it down.
You're basically saying right now, like, you weren't developed in a way that raised mental toughness, and it's everyone else's fault. It's your fault you're not tough.
I'm taking the exact opposite of extreme ownership of my lack of mental toughness, or former. I'm working on it. No, but I think it is a lot of environmental factors. So, like, you become tough because of certain environments, for sure.
Yeah, I guess we would need to see what happens with the people that aren't mentally tough.
Right.
Because where do they end up? They end up in the gutter. They end up dead. They end up in jail. They end up in bad places because they weren't mentally tough. They didn't figure it out. They didn't drive through it. Mm-hmm. And so we don't even know who those people are. What happened to them? They failed.
They weren't mentally
They didn't make that decision. They didn't decide that they were going to get out of that bad situation, that they were going to push through that scenario. Right. The guys that you played football with, they drove through those bad situations and got there. That's how they did it. They decided to do it.
Yeah, making that decision, I guess they would have to sort of access a place in their mind where that decision is final. Because a lot of times people say, yeah, I'm going to do this, and that's my dream, and I'm going to be an architect. And then when they go to college, when the beginner class is 3 hours a day for 5 days, they're I don't know.
That's one thing that the SEAL training does very well, is gets rid of those people, because everyone that shows up there thinks they want to be a SEAL,
right?
Until 2 weeks into it, and then you've got half the guys, and you end up with 20% of the guys.
Yeah,
and everyone has that dream when they show up there.
Yeah,
but that dream gets crushed.
So try to imagine yourself, you're probably not gonna be able to do this, but imagine yourself mentally not tough.
Okay. I
don't even want to say weak, just an average person.
Mm-hmm.
When you're doing some push-ups, you hit about, 15, you're like, oh, you hit 20, you're like, okay, I can't do anymore. So you stop doing the push-ups.
Okay.
Not the guy who's going to get those 5 extra. You're not that guy. Is there an exercise or an approach to just be on the path to at least increase your mental toughness?
Yeah.
Like what though? Like what?
Keep going.
Well, yeah, but I can't keep going.
Yes, you can.
I mean, I can, yeah.
Yes, you can. That's the difference. You can.
You just got to sit. Okay. I remember I read this small little book. It was called Mind Games. And there was this one short chapter on anger issue, like if you have anger issues, mm-hmm. right? And I never had anger issues or nothing like that, but like, when else I was young, I was like, I don't know, 23, 24. I get mad and think I'm better than certain rules. And when I get called out on the rules, I'd pitch it like, have an attitude or whatever, right? So I read this little chapter, and it said anger issues, along with other things, comes from a low self-esteem. Because you're real sensitive and you react, in this aggressive way or whatever. But the word low self-esteem was like a trigger for me. So having a low self-esteem for whatever reason, that was like an embarrassing thing.
Yeah.
So that could be a little trigger. So you could find little triggers in, let's say, you're doing push-ups and you don't want to do 5 more. The fact that you don't want to do the 5 more, that should be embarrassing to you.
Yes.
Like if you kind of tell yourself that'll help you make that decision where I'm not going to embarrass myself right now. So that fear of embarrassment can get you into the mode to want to exercise more mental toughness. You need that trigger.
And at the end of the day, when you feel that weakness, it's a choice to make to overcome it. It's not that big of a deal. You just suck it up and do it. Let's go to the next question.
There you have it.